Welcome to the Soul Body Wholeness Podcast.
Each episode is a living, breathing transmission. Together, we will explore deep, nuanced, and controversial topics of the soul. Welcome to your community of sensitive seekers and deep feelers.
Welcome back, Goldsbrand.
All right. Welcome, dear listeners. Welcome to the show. I am so excited for today's conversation. I am your host, Joshua, and today I have my very special friend, Hannah Jo. Hannah Jo is a men's coach specializing in helping men recreate their relationship to their sexuality, emotions, and desires. And she's so much more than that. I didn't want to read the full description. I'm so very excited to just gift this audience this portal into this world that I don't think a lot of people know about. And it's going to be really juicy. I'm super excited. There's a lot of your life that I don't know that much about. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Hannah Jo.
Thank you, Joshua. I'm super excited for the opportunity to share more of myself with your audience. And I must say, I have been in the vibration of the Soul Body Wholeness Temple since you've invited me to be here. So thank you for structuring that vibration and welcoming.
Thank you. That means a lot. It's newly front-facing. The temple is here, and appreciate the support. So before we dive into, one, how we know each other, and two, a little bit of your backstory and how you got to where you're at right now, I just want to invite everybody to take a moment and let's come together with our breath and our body and our sensations and just taking a pause with whatever you're doing, unless you're driving, but just coming into a moment of stillness, into this shared frequency. Feeling our feet on the floor. Inviting all of our attention into this present moment. Into the stillness and into the spaciousness. Gifting yourself the gift of acceptance with whatever it is that presents itself to you, whatever sensation, breath pattern, emotion, thought. Just a moment of acceptance. All right. I didn't realize that I needed that. All right, so Hannah Jo, we met at an ecstatic dance in Nosara in Costa Rica, and you and your people were like this magical trio of dancing, beautiful humans. I won't go into all the details, but we had some experiences getting to know one another very briefly. And how long was it later? Like a year or two?
2.
2 years later, we meet. I just see you at Embodiment Festival, Ecstatic Dance Festival. Apparently we like ecstatic dance in Guatemala. And I was like, Hannah Jo, is that you? And we really got to connect more deeply than we did the first time and get to know one another. And afterwards, I've had this very sweet connection via the phone. And as of the past month or so, I've been offering my services to you in the gift of somatic alchemy sessions, which is something that I'm certified in through the Genius frequency methodology and have made a little bit my own. So I call it somatic alchemy. That'll be a whole rabbit hole podcast you and I can do at some point. But yeah, it's been a really sweet journey getting to kind of see each other and support our soul evolution from afar. And I'm so excited for today's conversation. So, can you briefly share a little bit about what it is that you do? And I'm really interested in the story of how you got to this place.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll share that right now. My main focus is doing one on one work with men. And we are in a moment of transition in our business model and in development of a virtual community and coursework. So we will be becoming more accessible soon with what we teach called the PolyTantric Method. And
The,
I'm saying,
can you repeat that?
yeah, the
Just that the method. Yeah,
PolyTantric Method. The PolyTantric Method. That's what I
gotcha.
teach. And it's been a cultivation over about the last 5 years between myself and the folks that I'm in polyamorous relationship with, which is who you met on the dance floor in Nosara. And this practice is a living method. So we teach it through transmission, but also through the felt experience of a variety of somatic and embodiment practices that are really focused on internal emotional alchemy. And we'll go more into what that looks and feels like soon.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very excited. So, the reason I wanted to kind of pause there, and you picked a great place to pause, because I just feel like these terms are so loaded: polyamory, Tantra, and you're going to mix them, polytantric. So, I think telling your story might really help give a foundation and sort of reveal some of the deeper layers of what supports this method and supports you in your work.
Absolutely. Yeah, the polytantric method is purposefully provocative in my perspective. Just as you said, Joshua, polyamory and tantra are very trendy and very controversial right now. And so it's important that we bring in definition to these words. And in our practice, we use the word poly to represent many and the word tantra to represent weave. And so when we're practicing the polytantric method, there's many pieces that we're weaving together, and that's in our shadow work. And that's also in the method itself, where we're weaving together transpersonal psychology and tantric philosophy and somatic experiencing and all of these amazingly complementary practices that support us in first becoming more self aware and then understanding how we can bring more awareness to our relationships to shape them to essentially become vehicles that support our soul evolution.
Yeah, so beautifully said. And there was something you wrote in my podcast release form where I was asking you different questions, and I started purposefully. You were describing this method really as essentially living in the framework that all life experiences are for the evolution of one's soul. And to me, that really supports this foundational understanding of your work, because it's my work. It's more of, the strategy to get there is different. The paths to get there are different. My path isn't going to work for everyone else's path, my strategy, my framework, but the underlying foundation is so beautiful. And that's one of the reasons I want you on as a guest. I don't want the loaded, more controversial tantric teachers, perhaps, who are in more of a hedonistic or, yeah, when the focus is so much on pleasure and sex, right? Versus, well, foundationally, if it's not also or completely supporting healing and evolution of one's soul and liberation of one's soul, then I personally am not that interested in it.
Totally. I feel you 100%. And that's been one of the main projections that me, my partners, and our community receive is that our interest in polyamory means that we're interested in having multiple sexual partners. And although that desire can be true and is totally valid, we actually orient towards polyamory as an accelerant for deeper relational and trauma healing work. And that's
Mm.
actually exactly what attracted me to this community in 2020 when I met these people who were already in this practice and so generously invited me in. So, 2020, when we were all in an extreme expression of separation,
Mm.
my Instagram algorithm knew exactly what I needed. And it led me to connect to the women who are closest to me now. Their names are Sky and Elisa. And online, they were sharing so openly about their journey of loving the same man. And I was absolutely amazed, in awe, and simultaneously in skepticism of how that could be. And so I started following their story online, and I was very amazed about their way of articulating their sisterhood and their healing relationship as they shared love and partnership with the same man. So we ended up developing a friendship virtually. We actually ended up developing an online yoga business during the pandemic in 2020. And so the start of our relationship always had this service oriented and creative tone where we were teaching these online yoga classes that were associated to each chakra and really leading our community through this beautiful journey. And at that time, I was not in Southern California where I am now, but they had invited me to come visit. So I went to go see them in person, and they showed me what it is like to live a liberated life. Because at that time, during the pandemic, there was a lot of social conditioning that people were living by, essentially without question. And these new friends of mine, Johnny, Sky, and Elisa, not only were they questioning everything, but they were actually listening to their body, their intuition, and what felt most true for them. And so, an example I'll share of this was like, and you can discern whether this is relevant for your audience. But an example that I'll share of this was when they would go to the grocery store, they wouldn't wear masks.
Mhm.
And I was like,
It's probably relevant.
yeah, I was like, wait, you can choose to not wear a mask? And they're like, yes, you can choose to do whatever you want. And that was incredibly illuminating for me at that time. And it changed the trajectory of my life. So from that moment, we were having a lot of conversation on desire. And they were the first people to really ask me, what do you want in your life? And I knew that I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship path. I thought maybe that would be yoga coaching or some sort of holistic health work. And so we started to have these conversations of what do we want? What does our community need at this time? And throughout this journey, our conversations started to go more personal into what type of relationship do you want? What type of intimacy do you desire to experience? And that led me to uncover that I was with a deep desire to connect intimately to women. And I had been personally really blocked from that for a number of reasons. But simply through the conversation and unlocking that desire, that then created this opportunity for me to explore intimacy at a deeper level with these women. And so all of a sudden, I'm in this whole new world where our focus is exploring our emotional landscape as we open our hearts to each other. And that I'm now in a new friend group where the full-time focus is uncovering layer after layer and moving this energy together through, yeah, big emotions and a lot of emoting, but also each of us, were and are incredibly devoted to our embodiment practice. So that's a mix of moving energy through dance and yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong, just intuitive breath and body movement practices to support that alchemy. And that became full-time lifestyle by 2021. I ended up moving in with Johnny and Elisa, and that was really the start of the development of our practice of the PolyTantric method. And I'll pause there, but we can also pick up right there too.
Yeah, it's a great place to pause and to pick up. Beautiful. So, what I'm hearing in this story is where I think a lot of the collective would get stuck on is the content of the story, the share about the masks, to wear it or to not wear it. The, oh, you're just fulfilling a desire to be with women. It's hedonistic, it's sexual. When what I'm really hearing here is that these things that we all just eat up without asking, and we're so indoctrinated into as a reality, you were given this alternate reality of possibility. And so each of these experiences were really just a catalyst for realizing the potential of manifesting a whole new reality, of living in a whole new reality. Like, if this is possible, then I can heal through XYZ, right? But it's really about what you shared at the beginning, which is these are vehicles, and people get very attached to the vehicle, whether it's morally correct or sinful or whatever, other projections that people get stuck in. But you can apply this to so many vehicles in life. It's like you could be playing, I don't know, pick up basketball your whole life, and then you see somebody who just dribbles it a certain way and no one's ever done it before, and you're just like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. And so that looks so benign, no one's going to argue with that, but it's the same thing as far as like it's a vehicle to awakening. Don't get stuck and obsessed with the vehicle. So I just think that's really fascinating.
Totally. And the way my mind works is through self-inquiry and reverse engineering. And so in this example of wanting to connect with women, when I clarify that that's a desire, then I can see, well, why haven't I done that yet? And
Hmm.
then and check in with myself and see, okay, there's fear of judgment. Okay, now that I see that, how can I work with that energy? And that was the process that really was so transformative to me at that time and is now my life full time. And that's now the process I hold space for other people to explore. But it's really about, like you were saying, uncovering what are the detrimental energies and the limitations psychologically and within the layers of our energy body that are keeping us away from what we ultimately want. And the work you and I offer is bridging the gap.
Very well said. I love that. All right, so let's pick up from where you left off. Let's continue.
Yeah. So it feels important for me to share that at the time that I was diving into this relationship, specifically a more intimate, romantic, and personal relationship with Johnny and Elisa, our dear sister Sky was super involved in our process. And her and Johnny no longer had a sexual or romantic relationship at this point, but they had such a deeply committed friendship and creative partnership. And it was unlike any relationship I'd ever seen because they had transitioned what was previously their romantic partnership into something anew, while Johnny then shifted into more primary relationship with Elisa. And so I was entering into this vibration of family and unconditional love. And in some moments, I would question, like, this is so weird. No one else is doing it. And then other moments, I would say, this is so weird. No one else is doing this. And so,
I hear the difference.
yeah.
Why is no one doing this? It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was beautiful to have Sky as a reflection because otherwise I wouldn't perhaps have trusted it in the same way I did. And so together we started relating in a really deep way, like truly an all day process of shadow work and opening our hearts and opening our erotic energy for purposes of purification. And that's what we were all committed.
Mm,
And so as we started to really delve into this practice, we started to see parallels in other therapeutic work and other psychological healing practices. And it came to us, this realization that we're creating a template and we're creating something that is replicable. And so Johnny's background is entrepreneurship. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has an amazing mind that's very articulate, and he's a great writer. And so he really spearheaded this project of outlining the PolyTantric method. The way that we were operating within our relationship then became something that we were able to offer through our one-on-one coaching services. And again, at this time, there was such a need for intimacy. We had a sense of the more full service escort world because we knew women who were in that at that time. And so we had sight of the underbelly. And so we started to turn towards the men who were deeply craving connection to the feminine.
mm,
And we were able to invite them into a sacred healing space and then offer structure and guidance to, yes, relate to the feminine, but ultimately to access the feminine energy within themselves
wow.
and to, yeah, harmonize their internal energy to create their own soul body wholeness. So
There
then
it is.
so they can become a more resonant match with the women that they ultimately desire personal relationship with.
Mm, mm. Okay, let's pause. Amazing. There's some deep waters here. So let's go back a little bit and just for a moment, I feel curious about your experience with this.
Mhm.
With this liberation chapter that we're in as a culture with relational archetypes and categories where we're really getting away from the standard monogamy has to be for everyone. That's becoming, more widespreadly accepted. What I see still is the identity crisis, is like trying to fit into a thing. I don't know all the categories. Those aren't my worlds. Like I, I'm a reflector in human design, so I'm all open. So I'm constantly morphing, and so I can't empathize deeply with people who need a category because I'm always changing. And what I find is the constant, and I am my happiest and I'm in my soul's essence is when I'm connecting with people on a soul level and I'm continuously purifying concepts around whatever past history of a definition is of a relationship. When a person can actually meet me there in the present moment and they're purifying as well, the magic that I have experienced, it's like that moment you said is like, people aren't doing this. That's so weird. Like you're staying in the prison of like, it has to fit into this paradigm of, I see it in all the realms, not just the mainstream realms, the spiritual realms of like whatever the divine union is. Like to me, that divine union starts within, and then like it's an archetype that I've experienced in such depth with others, but it hasn't followed the confines of like, we're each other's partner forever. Like that, it hasn't, but I've experienced divine union. And so I'm hearing and I'm assuming that we're in resonance on this based off of your share. And yeah, I'm just curious your thoughts on like the relational categorizations versus sort of like this soul-based blueprint.
Totally. Yeah. I'm the type of person that really wants my story to be grounded and landed for sake of narrating shared reality. And so for myself, the language that feels most appropriate is saying this is my family. I can say these are my partners, but then even at that, that gets convoluted and people assume that we're sexually romantically connected or that there is
Mm,
of limitation or boundary, which isn't true in this moment. And so for myself, like you're describing, that inner union is essential. And I jokingly say that I'm in primary partnership with myself.
mm,
And that also means my own connection to spiritual growth. And then everyone else that I am close to, they are amazing mirrors for me to return back to myself over and over again. And we get to explore the pleasures of love and connection and all of the amazingness that comes along with that. And within our practice of the PolyTantric method, we are offering people a new story for what we call polytantric partnership. Because rather than a label defining a relationship, which can be challenging, there's instead these agreements that we orient towards that are about how we respond to our emotional triggers, how we relate to each other when we're having an emotional experience. And we're committed to that alchemical framework rather than being in commitment to each other for life.
wow. Yeah, I feel like your framework gives language to how I've been orienting in my relationships. And it's really beautiful because for people like me, I've really had to forge my own way. And there's been tools along the way, of course, but sort of to have the pathless path grounded in some form of structured, crystallized reality is pretty phenomenal. Um, I won't just keep tooting your horn without, I haven't experienced the depths of your work. So, but I feel like I've gotten to know you as a person, and this is sort of the first I'm hearing of this stuff too, which I was really excited by to be in the rawness of this conversation, like live learning about this stuff. So I'm having my own right now. It's like, wow, the
Mhm.
possibilities.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I feel like naming one thing, it's kind of like making the implicit explicit here.
Hmm.
But in the exploration of polyamory and breaking down that word to mean to love many, in its definition, that doesn't mean to have sexual connection with many. And so polyamory at the core is inviting us to see what stories about love and intimacy we've internalized and are living by. And so if people feel activated or upset by polyamory, we invite them to explore within themselves what their understanding of love is. And it may be a split experience. You may have certain concepts that you've internalized, and then you may find a deeper truth in your heart.
Yeah, I'm just contemplating my past relationships. I mean, I'm remembering even like coming into this concept of polyamory maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and feeling like, oh, I think this is for me. And then I've heard so many people have this initiation story, like, doing it really messy, getting very triggered, getting very hurt, adding layers of trauma, and then like creating all these stories and narratives around what the whole thing is. And um, I definitely had my projections and then sort of swinging to the polarities like, no, it's to be in integrity is the one. And it's just amazing as I've gone deeper and deeper into myself and having long periods without others in celibacy and, you know, being single, how those projections have sort of purified and, in my connections, feeling, if I have to label it, just more polyamorous at heart, which doesn't mean that, it's this rigid label of who I am. There can be a point where I meet a human and be like, I only want to be sexual and co-create a life around buying a house and joining a bank account and having children. You're the only person I want to do it. But there's this element that's still polyamorous. I might have like insanely deep connections that look very unconventional with other people. So there's like an essence and a heart to this that's helping to encapsulate the mythopoeticness of it versus it being the categories, the rigidity, which really speaks to my flavor much more.
Really. I'd like to speak to open sexuality here, and that myself and my community are highly selective in the way that we share our sexual openness because we do utilize our sexual energy as a life force of purification. And so we invite that energy to rise with full permission for it to also bring up and out whatever is ready to be brought to the surface to be fully released and integrated. And so we do feel very specific with being met there when we do open into sexual connection with others. And I feel that's also part of the new template, and what we're moving towards is learning to harness that energy.
Can I ask you, based off of that, sort of the logistics, the sexual health, the conversations, like how do you keep it um I mean, for lack of a better word, clean, but like, all the different understandings of that word. Like how do you, keep it from getting real sticky and then, obviously dangerous?
Totally. Yeah. So the reality is, in my journey in the past many years, I've been fairly sexually like monogamish. Specifically, when I was connected with Johnny and Elisa for many years, like we were very private in our sexual and relational alchemy, and we lived under a polytantric rock until our coming out.
When was that?
Our coming out was like around the time we met you in Costa Rica. We had
Wow. That makes so much sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got a lot of, ridicule and pushback because we live in a small city in Southern California, and people are just absolutely confused by us, which is fine. We invite that confusion because it's a great conversation. Um, but where I stand in the navigation of sexual health now, there's both the 3D and the 5D approach. So for myself personally, I feel very clear that I am not in my season of motherhood. I am in creation mode and there's a lot birthing through me, but I feel very clear that I do not desire to carry a child at this time. And so that means in connection with my male partners, I need them to be in practice of their semen control, semen retention, just in relationship with their sexual energy in a solo practice at this point in my life is required for me to have an intimate connection with men. That's just personally for me where I stand. On a spiritual note, I desire the men that I connect to sexually to have something greater than us that we're channeling that energy towards. So whether that's individual life purpose, or perhaps we have a shared project, I desire a conversation and a more ritual aspect to the way that we move our sexual energy together. And then at the 3D baseline, yes, getting tested is available. Having nice answers on a printed piece of paper can feel really grounding, and that's available as needed too.
Yeah, and I'm curious about the conversation piece. Do you feel like you have a lot of good templates that ease the complexity? Because I imagine and have experienced the complexity of communication, and also, yeah, it sort of segues into shared space, like being in shared space with, the multiple people, or like go to a gathering, a dance, and I came with this person. So maybe there's this like navigating some of those waters.
Totally. Yeah, this is great. So, in regards to simplifying the complexity, it's available for each individual to build relationship with their soul. And so, fortunately and unfortunately, that's what this process simplifies down to, is having a deep relationship with your own self-knowing. And when you're connected to that, you're able to speak from that place. And so your communication style adjusts. And so, yeah, you can have like nonviolent communication techniques in your mind if that's something you've been exposed to. But ideally, that's become integrated into your own authentic voice. And again, within our practice of the Polytantric method, one of the principles that we offer is TLC. It stands for truth, love, and choice. So we're acknowledging that truth is an ever evolving truth, which requires an individual to have a relationship to their somatic body and their spiritual gnosis to be able to connect to their own personal truth and name that at the earliest availability that it feels safe to do so. So, for folks who are wanting to start to open these conversations of maybe allowing their relationship or their sexuality to take a new shape, my encouragement would be bring it all home, bring it back to yourself and start there. And that will make every conversation moving forward a lot easier.
So I imagine in practicality that involves naming the uncomfortable truth very often and very early. And that might be, in the case of an example of, you go to a gathering, you went with one person, another lover's going to be there. It's like, do you prescribe, do you suggest speaking to the truth of what it is that you want? Like the person who has two lovers, it's like, what is it that you actually want in this situation? Who do you want to be with in this situation? Um, yeah, I'm curious if you could walk us through. If you can't tell, I might have had some challenging moments in my life with some of these things that I'm asking you
Yeah.
about.
So I'm thinking back to a time where I did have two men in my life that I was lovingly and intimately connected to who were at the same event. And fortunately, everyone knows my context, that it's utterly important to me that the people I'm intimately connected to are at minimum in friendship with each other. At
Mm,
maximum, they're in their own alchemical relationship of doing work together.
mm,
And me and my ideal world, right? So at this moment in time, I can remember that one of my partners was feeling afraid that he was going to give energy off that he had taken me away from this other person. And I, at the time, invited him to share that directly with this other man in my life for sake of dissolving that tension and also allowing them to have more vulnerability and intimacy.
mm, mm.
And so for myself personally, like when it comes to my desires and being in shared space with people who are lovers or people I'm intimately connected to, um, I'm very transparent and not much about my life is private. So a lot of people know a lot,
I couldn't tell.
and that's what personal context.
Yeah. I'm really impressed and so grateful for you being on this show, but please go on.
Totally. And so for like what you were speaking to earlier is naming that uncomfortable truth. In our practice, we speak to our experience at the earliest availability. So sometimes you may be in a particular context or container where it's not quite comfy to share the uncomfortable thing because
Hmm.
you may have foresight that it'll open a jar of emotional worms. And so there is a practice of discernment, which we associate to the development of the solar plexus to be
Mm,
able to hold your own alchemical process within your body, even if you are in a social setting.
mm,
And then feels available and like naming to the person who you feel you want to be seen by and say, like, hey, I'm processing something at a deeper level right now. I'm in my own alchemy. There's nothing that I need right now other than for you to know that that's what I'm moving through. And when we transition from this scene, I'd like to dive into it deeper, or I'll let you know when I'm ready.
wow. Just writing ferociously on my journal. Yeah. Really love the association of your capacity to build being with and alchemizing your inner emotional experience with the solar plexus. Because what was coming through and I was writing down is there's so many vehicles you have here. Because listening, it's like on the surface can sound like, these little poly drama things. See, this is why it's bullshit. And this is like, who has time for that? Right.
Totally.
Um, I'm seeing that if everyone is devoted to using every nuanced moment as an opportunity, as a vehicle for awakening, it's really, there's a lot of vehicles for sovereignty here. It's like really understanding my own connection to me and how serving that serves the whole. It's not out of alignment or selfish. It's actually serving the whole. And that takes so much of that development of discernment as what you just spoke to. And for me, the sovereignty piece is full on solar plexus. So I'm just, yeah, I'm I'm appreciating this a lot.
Yeah, we associate the solar plexus to be connected to our internal masculine. And so we can see that as our container around our deeper emotional experience. And the highest expression of self responsibility is being able to hold that on our own, even if it's temporary. And, the things, accept it, have compassion for it, practice non resistance, breathe, be with the sensation, etc. And then when we are in partnership or even in friendship, ideally we're able to call upon those folks as collaborators to support our alchemical process, whether that's just by hearing us, witnessing us. And in my context with my people, we're deeply empathically feeling each other always and supporting the alchemy. And so, ideally, in my world, the people closest to my heart and to my arrows are here to collaborate with me on the alchemy.
Mm. Team alchemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sessions that I facilitate with you are called somatic alchemy for a reason, because we are taking all of the content of the shadow as beautiful fertilizer to alchemize for the medicine of our soul, our greatest becoming, really refining, tuning to who we're supposed to be, which is out of alignment with many of the programs of what I'll call the false matrix. So amazing. Where were we at in the story?
I was starting to speak to the development of our services for men. So, naming again the characters in my story, Johnny, his background as a serial entrepreneur, he really wanted to shape a business to support myself and Sky and Elisa in offering our gifts as coaches, mentors, and guides into this relational and intimacy work. So in 2021, we started our business. Elisa is the founder of the Studio X, and myself and Sky are co founders. And at this time, we launched virtually and in person, extending the PolyTantric Method as a one on one experiential practice for these men to feel and to allow their upgrade in session so they can then embody that template as they maybe go home to their partner or explore dating and relating to women. And so we've been on that journey now for about the last 5 years. And we each feel very passionate about serving men. And I will speak to myself personally. I love serving men. I love holding them. I love offering them the unconditional love of the Divine Mother. I love bringing in elements of sensuality and sometimes even sensual domination into these in-person experiences, and essentially creating an opportunity for a man to come deeper into his feeling body, perhaps deeper into his body than he's been in decades.
Mm.
Kinky for that.
How coincidental. Your greatest kink is the portal to their greatest liberation. I mean, that's one way to look at soul work. It's where your greatest kink meets the world's greatest need for you, right? It's like you're the best at doing this thing and it brings you the most joy.
Yeah, and there's a ripple effect there too, because we're leading these men to come into relationship again with their embodied truth, which can then express as adjustments in their career or their living situation or their partnership. Like some folks that we work with, we're supporting them through major change. And it is this orientation of connecting each individual to their highest inspiration and therefore their highest service to the healing of humanity.
Mm, yeah. So it's soul alignment. It's really helping them align their true values and prioritize and, value and protect what's important.
Absolutely. And along the way, let go of all of the social conditioning of who they think they need to be as a man. We do a lot
Mm,
structuring work around what we call the man program, so
mm.
they able to come into more harmonious relationship with who they are at the core of their being.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the man program. Tell me a little bit about some of the deconditioning that you help guide them through.
Sure. Yeah, so speaking, to American culture specifically, men are generally taught not to feel a certain range of emotional experiences. They're usually shamed or guilted when they do express emotion, and then that results in repression and suppression of their deeper felt experience, which then can express as physiological illness and disease as well. And so for many, this is a lifetime of living this way until they find our services or other therapeutic mental health services. And then their reality starts to dissolve because they see now that feeling is healing. And so part of the man program might say, it's not safe to be sad. No longer a man if I cry. And so we're allowing these stories to be rewritten and then allowing the nervous system to actually feel safety to be in the range of emotional experience.
Mm.
Learn safety in one's humanity. And this is also related to how one relates to their sexual energy, because there's usually a lot of, yeah, internalized stuff there, usually in the judgment of rightness or wrongness. And so the process we lead men through is really through letting go of those internalized judgments and allowing what is to be and how
Is
to
that
hold.
like rightness versus wrongness of desire and turn on?
Yeah. For sex and relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I deeply relate.
Yeah.
um, I'm such a multidimensional human and trying to fit into the confines of the tiny window of what's acceptable, not just in America, but growing up in a bit more of a rural upbringing.
Mhm.
Um, that confusion and suppression of these things that were arising um, really caused a lot of sideways, like my actions to come out sideways, I should say, caused a lot of problems in my life. Um, and luckily, I feel like I've gotten to the root of a lot of that stuff and come out and found my liberation as a pretty young person. But I know if I had to continue living that way, it would have killed me at a pretty young age, especially with my sensitivities. It's just, it creates a lot of disease in the inner landscape, and in the outer landscape creates a lot of layers of hell.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you're so not alone in that. And I work with a lot of men who carry so much emotional weight around ways that they've been infidelitous or even infidelitous in ideation, and the way that that weighs so heavy in their mind and body and is actually causing them to no longer be present in their current relationships. And so I'm grateful to have a safe space for these men to share openly and to be met with an unconditional compassion, and then to be guided to work with those energies within their own body. And we really like to emphasize that it's not actually about what becomes. It's not about like this big change or desire that one may be fixated on. It's
Mm.
about enlightening journey that leads us to become a more vibrational match with what we ultimately want.
Do you feel like there's a need to meet some of these men where they're at? And what I mean by that is the desires of what they think they want.
Mm.
And because if you tell them what's actually on the other side, that level of their consciousness, awareness, and identity, and their center, where they find themselves, can't actually articulate what you're talking about, can't understand it. It's not until they're on the other side that like, oh, those desires that I had before probably wouldn't have even got. It's like I wanted the feeling that I have right now, and I was associating these desires, and I'm actually getting bigger feelings that I didn't realize were possible.
Yeah, totally. So very similar to plant medicine, what we provide at the Studio X gives you what you need, not exactly what you want. Context is clear from the beginning that we're not offering pleasure-based experiences. And there's many tantric massage providers local to us who can provide that, and we're happy to refer people if that's clearly what they want. I feel that each coach on our team has a different approach to sharing the method, and I personally do have a greater capacity to meet men where they're designed to be met. That awakening their erotic body, their arousal body, is actually what then awakens the vulnerability of their open heart. And so knowing that there is an artistry to creating that in a safe way, and I feel very skillful in that. Um, for myself, I speak to the ears that are listening. So whoever's seated across from me, the transition is or transmission rather is going to be totally unique for them. And I think that all of the women on my team are very good at that because we are deeply integrated in what our message and framework is. And at the same time, we do a lot of work to clear out to channel exactly what needs to be heard.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm feeling like it's time to start landing the plane.
Yeah,
Um, this conversation is so juicy, and my brain is literally like turning into mush. I've never done a podcast at this time, so it's something to kind of consider. But I'm holding the feeling of sadness and disappointment I have towards that because this is like, such a so many portals to explore here. And I'm excited to have you on again.
totally. Yeah, this is all of my favorite stuff to talk about. So I am happy to revisit the conversation. And thank you for being so receptive to my story and the different directions we went today.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel like it's relevant or do you feel excited to share a meditation or a practice for us?
Yeah, I'm open to that. I'd like to lead the Trinity of Awareness meditation.
Okay. That would probably be great for me where I'm at right now.
Feeling that.
Yeah, I'd love that. So I'll just pass the mic over to you.
Thank you, Joshua. Yeah, I want you to sit in a way that feels easy. I like my palms down on my legs, so whatever is best for you. And just as you are with your eyes closed, you can start to breathe. If it feels available to you, letting go of your exhale through an open mouth. When you breathe in, you can feel your breath pass through your heart space, squeezing the abdomen to let go of all of the exhale. And in the Trinity of Awareness meditation, the first pillar of the Trinity is our rhythmic breath. As you find this rhythm in your own body, you can notice how your exhale supports you in softening the shoulders, relaxing the muscles in your face. And bring one hand over your heart space and the other hand over your belly. And bring your awareness to how your hands feel against your body. You can feel your inhale expanding the belly into your palm and then rising into your chest. Exhaling from the chest and then the belly. And underneath your hand on your heart, you can feel for your heart space and notice what sensations may be alive for you. Maybe emotions too, expressing a sensation in the body. And whatever you discover there is perfect and there's nothing that needs to be changed. Because right now we're going to practice together breathing in and cultivating compassion for our felt experience. Having compassion for however you're feeling, even if it's a less preferred sensation or emotion. And connecting to self compassion is the second pillar of the Trinity. Start to take some deeper breaths into your heart space, feeling that vibration of compassion. You can exhale, feeling a surrender when you breathe out of your mouth. Breathing in and expanding that vibration of compassion. Exhale to let go. Letting go any self-judgment, letting go of any resistance. The third pillar of the Trinity, surrender and let go. You can take a couple more breaths there, just staying connected to that circuitry. You can return when you're ready.
That was epic.
Mm.
Yeah, that was exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Hannah Jo.
Thank you, Joshua.
Where can the folks find you? I'm going to list your links, but is there anything you want to share, an offering or website or anything?
Yeah, totally. People can visit thestudiox.com to read more about our one-on-one coaching services and to stay connected about the launch of our virtual polytantric community. And otherwise, find me on Instagram. It'll be linked below. Hannah Jo MC.
Thank you, dear listeners, and may this meditation serve you in self-compassion.
Thank you for joining me on the Soul Body Wholeness podcast. If you like this episode, you can support the journey by rating and subscribing wherever you listen. I invite you to follow me on Instagram at Soul Body Wholeness for more insights and to stay up to date with my current offerings. And if you feel called to work with me directly, I invite you to visit my website at www.soulbodywholeness.life. I offer somatic alchemy sessions and soul purpose initiation journeys that awaken your inner healer, reconnect you to your innate wholeness, and ignite your soul's deepest purpose. I invite you to carry this resonance with you as you move throughout your day and return anytime you need a reminder of your courage, your wholeness, and your light. Blessings, old friend.